The River Calder is a river in West Yorkshire, in Northern England. The Calder arises on the eastern slopes of the Pennines and flows through green countryside, former woolen mill villages, and large and small towns before joining the River Aire near Castleford. The river's valley is generally known as the Calder Valley. The name Calderdale usually refers to the large urban and rural borough through which the upper river flows. The lower reaches flow through the boroughs of Kirklees and Wakefield. However, the river does not flow through the centres of Halifax and Huddersfield, which are on the Calder's main tributaries, Hebble Brook and the River Colne respectively. The only large town centres through which the Calder flows are Bridgehouse, Mirfield, Dewsbury and the city of Wakefield. The river itself is only navigable in short sections, but these sections are connected by artificial cuts to form the Calder and Hebble navigation, a popular leisure waterway which is part of the connected inland waterway network of England and Wales. Etymology. The name Calder is thought to come from the early common Brittonic, meaning hard or violent water, or possibly from another Celtic language, meaning river of stones. Another possible explanation is that it is a corruption of Gauls-Dare, Gauls being an ancient form of Celts, and Dare meaning water. Hence Calder would mean the Celts River. This is possible as the moorlands and rugged valleys of Upper Calderdale remained a Celtic area for at least 2 centuries after the surrounding lowlands became dominated by Anglo-Saxon culture. This history is reflected in the name of a village, Walsden, just inside the border of Upper Calderdale, which is probably derived from Walesdene, or Valley of the Welsh, in Anglo-Saxon. However, there are several rivers in Britain named Calder, which do not necessarily have the same history. Geography. The river rises approximately 1,300 feet above sea level at Healdmore, northwest of Todmorden, and drains an area of 957 square kilometers. It flows for a distance of around 45 miles through Cornholme, Todmorden, Eastwood, Hebden Bridge, Mytham Royd, Ludenden Foot, Sowerby Bridge, Copley, Elland, Bridgehouse, Mirfield, Dewsbury, Horbury Bridge and on to Wakefield. The catchment lies on carboniferous rocks of millstone grit, and is heavily reservoired, with 39 reservoirs licensed to provide water. The river is joined by Hebden Water at Hebden Bridge, and is linked to the town of Rochdale, Greater Manchester across the Pennines via the Rochdale Canal. Across much of its length, the Calder is canalised and becomes the Calder and Hebble navigation. It is also part of the Aire and Calder navigation, and to the east of Castleford, it merges into the River Aire, going on to join the Humber estuary and the North Sea. History. The river was key to the success of the textile industries in the local area, and flows through the area known as the Yorkshire Heavy Woolen District. Many major mills were constructed along its banks, particularly at Dewsbury and Wakefield, but also in the smaller communities of Hebden Bridge, Sowerby Bridge and Todmorden, as well as along its tributaries, the Hebble at Halifax, and the Colne at Huddersfield. The mills in the Upper Calder Valley specialized in cotton weaving, with some cotton spinning, while those in the lower part of the valley specialized in wool and shoddy. Some of these structures still exist as listed buildings, although the large-scale production of yarn and textile has now ceased. The river formed an important transportation system for raw materials and the products of the mills, particularly prior to the development of other infrastructures such as road and railway links to the area. At many places, the river is not navigable because of weirs of the shallow depth, and passage for boats was made by the creation of cuts where boats are able to enter the Calder and Hebble navigation. Work began to make the Calder navigable above Wakefield in 1758. Wakefield's medieval 9-arched bridge is 320 feet long, was built in sandstone between 1342 and 1356, and replaced an earlier wooden structure on the site of an ancient ford. The chantry chapel on the bridge was licensed in 1356. At Wakefield, a variety of former mill buildings are currently being redeveloped to create a waterfront project which will combine residential housing, offices, galleries and public spaces. The Hepworth Wakefield opened in 2011. Environmental, wildlife and fish. Until the 19th century, the Calder was home to large numbers of salmon, but pollution from the textile and chemical industries along its banks led to the death of the salmon population by the mid-19th century. The last salmon on record was caught at Wakefield in 1850. However, there is evidence that they are returning, with sightings on the lower river at Castleford in 2008 and alleged catchings much further upstream. Around Huddersfield, Murfield and Wakefield are popular areas for coarse fishing: roach, perch, chub, dace, minnows, gudgeon, pike, bream and trout. However, the areas upstream of Dewsbury are quickly becoming cleaner and more suited to game and specialized river cyprinids like barbel, as well as general coarse fish that are also doing very well. Alongside the river are 4 sites of special scientific interest. Recent improvements in reducing the amount of pollution have led to the return of native wildlife, such as the otter and kingfisher to stretches of the river. Kingfishers are easily spotted all the way up and down the river's course and are quite numerous around the Murfield area. Pollution: the river has been heavily polluted by the textile industry, and, more recently, chemical works along its banks. Close to its source at Eeldfoot, the water is polluted by the remains of past open-cast mining activities and a landfill site. This has also led to a significant amount of soil erosion, with major mudslides into the river and its tributaries in 1947, 1982, 1991 and 2001. As the river reached Huddersfield, the traditional textile industries created a considerable amount of water pollution, particularly through the processes involved in the production of chemical dye and in scouring the wool clean. The enormous growth of the population over the last 100 years has caused other problems in relation to sewage. Another major source of pollution until recently came from a disused tar distillery in Murfield. In the middle 1950s, the river was so polluted by dye works in the middle reaches between Todmorden and Sowerby Bridge that it ran different opaque colors from day to day. On Easter Monday, after a long weekend holiday shutdown, the water cleared and the river bottom could actually be seen, looking like a grey wool blanket. Tighter controls during the 1950s led to an improvement in water quality, and presently organisations such as Calder Future are working collaboratively with local industries and Yorkshire Water to promote more responsible use of the river and to re-establish lost wildlife along its banks. Flooding and flood defences. The river has a history of flooding, mainly due to the high sides of its banks in its earlier stages, which cause rapid runoff of water following heavy rain. Much of the lower part of the river has been urbanised, therefore trapping flowing water within the engineered river channels. Fast flows of water cause the deposition of sediment collected from the river banks, raising the river height further. A variety of flood defences are in operation along the Calder Valley to prevent the recurrence of floods which devastated communities in the early part of this century. At Wakefield, for example, the lake at Pennines Country Park is used as an overflow for the river in order to protect the town. The recently regenerated Wakefield waterfront area is defended by one of the most sophisticated flood defense systems in Europe. This complex of computer-controlled automatic flood barriers are housed below ground and rise automatically when a flood threat is detected. Leisure use of the river. The river is host to a variety of water sports activities: a canoeing centre at Sowerby Bridge, water skiing in gravel pits at Cromwell Bottom, water sports and angling at Pennines Country Park. The use of leisure craft and narrow boats along the lower stretch of the river where navigation is made easier through the canals built during the Industrial Revolution. Walking routes along the Pennine Way and Calderdale Way. Angling in areas is distributed between the following: Bradford No. 1 Angling Association, Mirfield AC, Thornhill AC, and Wakefield AC. Some stretches are free and only require a valid Environment Agency rod license.